It's time once again for a Sunday night edition of the Georgia Show. I'm Wes Blankenship, Jake Rowe, Jeremy Johnson, Rusty Menzel, all on as we start off with the biggest news of the day. Chris Cole keeps things hot on the recruiting trail for the Dogs, that four-star linebacker. It's been a while since we've done one of these. Well, let's break down the Dogs' latest commitment in this class.
Jeremy, I'll let you go first, man.
Yeah, he's a really good linebacker. He's another one of these athletic guys that I believe he plays safety a little bit in his first couple of years. So he's got a lot of speed, big, long, rangy guy. The first time I saw him, I thought he was a receiver or a tight end or something. And somebody said, "Hey, that's a linebacker." So, he's one of these guys that, his best football, could be in 2 or 3 years. I think it's a big get for Georgia. So that's a, good opportunity, to continue to add some depth there. I know they got 3 guys last year, so he's definitely a guy that that'll look a lot like Quay Walker and the Channing Tindalls of the world.
Got to have those 3 down backers now. You can't get caught in the substitution issue where somebody can't cover in space because you'll get 8 up. And this is a guy that can play 3 downs for you. As Jeremy said, very athletic. I think he's one of the fastest 55-meter hurdlers in America. So that tells you when you can pick your hips up and put them down that quick, you're athletic. To be able to run and do those hurdles is a really key indicator. You don't see that much anymore, especially out of linebackers running the hurdles. So you look at him and you think this is a guy that can play. If you're going to play linebacker for Glenn Schumann, I think we don't even have to look at tape anymore. We know you can run because you just have to be able to run. You can't be labeled as a thumper anymore, because if you're labeled as a thumper, Georgia's not the place for you. You got to have physicality, but you've got to be able to cover. And these teams spread you out so much. And I go back. We all kind of think about a play or two, but I think about Florida a couple of years ago when they spread Nakobe Dean out 1-on-1 and thought they had a mismatch, and they throw a ball there and he picked 6 to the end zone. So teams are going to spread you out. They can put you in 1-on-1 situations. They can ISO you. So I think this is another guy that fits a mold. And, kudos to Georgia holding off USC at the end. And also, a Tennessee visit again, back-to-back Tennessee visits. But in the end, picks Georgia tonight.
When you look at his junior film, too, one thing that stood out to me first over anything was he's lining up out there over the slot. They're putting him out there like way out there in space. He's picking passes off. That matchup stuff's unreal, man. Just the ability to, run with a tight end or run with a running back. It's pretty incredible. It wouldn't shock me to see him do some of the stuff that they had Leonard Floyd, Lorenzo Carter, Walter Grant, Darius Smith do, and that's kind of play that hybrid Sam linebacker star position. Some of these heavy frontsmen, you're seeing more 12 personnel now, right? You're seeing some teams kind of gravitate towards maybe going with 2 tight ends, even if they're athletic tight ends. Well, if you want to match up with a team like that and do some run game stuff, then Chris Cole is a weapon for you.
Yeah, we got his huddle film up here right now, and you don't want to be known as just a thumper, but he can do that for sure. That speed is pretty intense. Appreciate y'all tuning in tonight, and want to invite you to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It'll give you access to comment and ask us some questions about Chris, about the team as the show goes on. It's been a great summer, great fall getting started with this coverage of the 2-time defending national champs. But come on in, hit like and subscribe, and mix it up with us. We'll see what we got. I love watching this dude's tape, and like I said, starting the show, it's been a while since we've gotten to break some of this stuff down. So we've been consumed with the team, rightfully so, but it's a nice breath of fresh air to remind everybody out there that Georgia's still, and Glenn Schumann still getting it done on the trail with all these top-notch linebackers.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all would agree, especially Jeremy and I, about how well Glenn Schumann. Obviously the Philadelphia Eagles came after him, and recruiting didn't mean a damn thing to them. But X and O's was a key part of why the Philadelphia Eagles came after pretty aggressively to sign Glenn Schumann and get him away from Georgia. He stays, but I don't think people kind of continue to grasp how much of an alpha recruiter he is. And he doesn't miss much. And, at times when he does miss, it's because of the class in front of him. He did so well. People don't want to follow that up. So I think it says a lot about these particular guys he has in this class, Justin Williams, Chris Jones, and now Chris Cole, to follow, Troy Bowles, C.J. Allen, and Raylan Wilson. So he signed 6. He's going to sign 6 in 2 classes. And I think it says a lot about Georgia. He's already in on Zayden Walker, who I think is going to play inside linebacker, who is one of the most I don't know how much tape you watch if you're joining us, but go watch Zayden Walker's clips. And you want to talk about, I don't like to throw the word freak around, but I don't know how else to describe that guy. He's already number 1 linebacker in the state of Georgia for next year. So they're on him hard as well. You kind of like Georgia's chances early on right there. So Glenn Schumann not only is an X and O guy, he's an alpha recruiter, and I think that's why he's making in the neighborhood of $2 million a year.
Yeah, one of the cool things that I've noticed too is that these guys, when they talk about him, they talk about him having a good relationship and all that, and that's important. I think it's just cool to see the types of guys that they're attracting as people. Just Justin Williams and Chris Jones, and even this kid Chris Cole is kind of they're all about. I want somebody that's going to push me. I want someone that's going to make me better as a football player, because they have the vision that, hey, we're not complete players yet, and we have an opportunity to go to Georgia. And, this guy is, we'll sprinkle in and play a little bit, but, over the 3-4 years, you become a better football player. And I think that's something that, when you talk about a guy being coveted by the next level, that's something that translates. If you can develop talent and improve it over a certain period of time, that translates. Obviously you don't have to recruit and who.
Yeah, and one thing too, Jeremy, you're touching on there, a great point to the next level. Channing Tindall didn't start at Georgia. He was a 3rd rounder. Clay Walker started 1 year, and he was a 1st rounder. So I think there's a lot to say, hey, you now just come here and let me coach you up and get you ready for that next level. And here are the players. I mean, Tate Crowder's still playing, which is crazy. So I think that that's the value. And Jeremy, I think you hit it right on the head. And it takes a certain fit. And I think Glenn Schumann, in particular, in his room, has done a great job of finding guys that fit his culture, his room. And it takes a certain type of player to walk in there, because if you were to take a picture right now of that room and those guys right now, if Glenn Schumann got everybody together and took a picture, and we go back and look at it 4 years from now, and Jake and Wes, I think you would agree, there's a lot of dudes just going to play Sunday in that room. So it takes a special dude to walk in there and say, you know what, not only do I want to come to Georgia, I want to come in there knowing that I may not be playing right now, but I'm playing the long game. And the long game is Glenn Schumann has a track record. Glenn Schumann has proven results. And Glenn Schumann doesn't have to BS people. He just has to say, hey, here it is, and here's what my guys are doing.
Yeah.
Bro, you're on mute.
Yeah. All right. Papaw's got the internet again.
It's never sounded better, as they told me on TV the other night. The channel was muted.
That's right. I got a voice for miming. Hey, y'all talked about the 3 guys they got in last year's class, and obviously those, all 3 absolute dudes. C.J. Allen's already playing. Raylan Wilson would have been if he wasn't, hadn't gotten hurt already. But with those 3, with that as the backdrop, not only has he got these 3 guys committed in this class, but he had Georgia in the thick of it for Sammy Brown, DeMarcus Riddick, and Joseph Phillips. And then when the in-state kid in your backyard and the 2 from the state next to you didn't decide they wanted to be at Georgia, they decided, hey, we're going to do something else. He just went and got the number 1 from Texas and the number 5 from Virginia, and I believe the number 7 linebacker in the country from Virginia. So it's just wild. It is absolutely wild the way he can do it. And it's just rare. You just don't see guys that recruit it like that. You got to love it. You got to love what you do to recruit at that kind of level. And Glenn Schumann does.
So to your point about getting guys that come in knowing that they may not play right away, when you talk about the backdrop of the transfer portal era that everybody's in, look, we got a small sample size. We've seen Colorado make it work thus far this season. Ole Miss looked pretty good playing at Tulane, but that score, maybe a little bit closer than the final score looked like. But I think it's kind of an insurance policy for Georgia to bring guys in that come in believing and knowing, hey, this is a long game for me. And that gives Georgia, in an ideal world, a little bit better picture of what they're working with roster management-wise and not trying to piece together an entire roster based off of guys that go to the portal. They've got an idea. All right, this is what we're going to battle with here.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, that's why you see them be so aggressive, going after three guys that all three can play inside the linebacker. You never know what happens. I know Tresman Marshall ends up in Alabama after being at Georgia for 3 years and playing sparingly, and he's a starter for Alabama. So, Raylan Wilson, Troy Bowles, CJ Allen, all will see the field. Justin Williams and Chris Jones and Chris Cole, they're likely to all eventually play at some point. But what happens if one of those guys passes one of those guys, and you have a situation like where Tresman goes to Alabama, and Georgia hadn't really needed many guys to fill that spot because they got three guys they play regularly, and then you got CJ Allen now sprinkling in there. So that's what they like to do, is have all this depth. And like you said, that's definitely a point of power for them to be able to have a bunch of depth all throughout their roster. It's not just the linebacker core, it's defensive line, wide receiver, running back, even quarterback to an extent.
Before we wrap up with the recruiting notes on this show, Neighbor in the comments wants to know, and he asks Rusty, but Jeremy, feel free to weigh in. Bro, if you got any intel here, is Georgia going to flip Cam Davis from Florida State?
No, Georgia's full at running back for this class, and I know they recruited Cam Davis a little while early on, but he's set on Florida State, and he took a couple of visits to Georgia. But Georgia with their guys, with Nate Frazier and Dwight Phillips and Chauncey from down in Florida, they are done. And by the way, I saw a neighbor ask how to flip to our site, so that might be the best post of the night. So we'd love to have you, and get in while you can, man, and enjoy it.
DawgsHQ.com. That's where you can find all of Jeremy's intel from the past few days and all of
the
intel that our team has. What's up, Rusty?
Can I ask Jeremy one question before he steps out? Jeremy, you went down to Colquitt, Moultrie, Georgia the other night and got a chance to see Carr, wide receiver, in person. What was your thoughts? And is he a game changer? Is he a alpha receiver? Is he a Miko Hardman type? What's the comparison you think in person you saw out of him?
I when you walk out there and look at him, you don't think, oh my God, this guy's going to take the top off of a defense. But just watching him play, he's just so smooth. He's explosive, changes directions. Like, he's really smooth when he changes directions. And he's not afraid to go up and get the football either. A guy 5'10", right at 6 foot ish, isn't afraid to attack the football. So I don't know if Georgia's had a guy like this recently that isn't necessarily a big body receiver. I'm almost inclined to compare him to A.D. Mitchell a little bit. I believe he can play outside, and I think he can play inside. And he's a guy that you can run on jet sweeps and throw, little bubbles to, and he can go 80 yards because, he has that kind of speed. And one thing I really like about him is that he's tough. He's a tough guy to be, 170, 175 pounds. He ain't scared of nobody. So he's definitely one of these guys that, you're going to look up in 3 or 4 years that has done a lot of really good things in Athens just because of the way he approaches stuff.
I tell you, I don't want to, I'm not trying to extend this out a little bit, but the guy that keeps coming to mind for me, and I think he's a tad bit smaller, but he's a lot faster, is Terry Godwin. Because of that kind of, Terry was never a big receiver, but he'd go get it in the air, and he had big hands, and he had great hands, and he would do things like that. Like, he played a little bigger than he was. Terry played like a big receiver at times, and I think that's one of the things. But I think Carr is, you're talking about a similar quickness, but Terry didn't have an extra gear, even though he ran a 4.5 something at the combine. It wasn't slow by any means. I do think that Nye may be just a tad bit faster, maybe has that extra gear. But just in terms of like the crazy catches, the one-handed stuff, like you said, the way he attacks the football as a smaller receiver, That's kind of something he reminds me of. And before Jeremy gets off here too, another thing, I don't let the cat out of the bag, but what you got coming tomorrow, because obviously there's some movement here with Georgia and another 5-star prospect, that we're talking about. You got some stuff coming tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big confirmed 5-star coming to Athens this weekend for this game against South Carolina. It will be it's a big guy, big time target, and definitely think Georgia has an opportunity to either make up some ground or be really involved here throughout this recruitment. I'll definitely touch on it a little bit more tomorrow. All
right, that's what we like to call a tease. Jeremy Johnson, where can people find you, man?
Twitter, Jeremy_Johnson. Actually, I don't have it memorized. Jeremy _O Johnson on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. So you can
nobody knows.
Check me out here on DawgsHQ all the time.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, appreciate you stopping by. We'll catch more of you over at DawgsHQ.com. Peace.
All right. Thank y'all for having me.
Appreciate it, Jeremy.